cosmic consciousness, extraterrestrials and UFOs, sacred geometry, ancient civilizations, spiritual connection, the quantum universe. All of these topics and so much more with your host, Seb Tuck, on Alien Spirit with Seb.
Hello, welcome to Alien Spirit. I'm Sev. Today, I have a guest. I'm very happy to have her as my guest. I have the feeling that this 1 hour that we have together is not going to be nearly enough. We've already talked for about half an hour before the interview even started. Debz Shakti is here today. She is an internationally recognized quantum hypnotist, experiencer, intuitive counselor, energy worker, speaker, and an author. Debz is the associate producer of a film called Alien Abduction Answers. It's directed by John Yost. And we watch in the film as Debz regresses John, who is in the beginning stages of accepting and understanding his ET contact. The documentary also features Whitley Strieber and other experiencers. Debz hosts her own show called Hidden Variables on YouTube, and I was lucky enough to be one of her guests. She also hosts workshops, retreats, and classes. We will be speaking about all she has to offer, including her work in neurographic art. What is it and how can it help you? I'm very happy to introduce Debz Shakti.
Oh, thank you for having me, my dear Seb. It's so good to see you again.
It's so easy to talk with you. All right, to begin with, where did you grow up? And what were you interested in as a young girl or a young lady?
Oh, well, I was born in Southern California, but because my dad was military and then once he got out of the military, went into the Justice Department, we had to move all over the place. So I've lived all over the United States, mainly the West, the Southwest, and the Deep South. But when I was about 16, 15, we moved to Kansas. And I've lived in the Midwest most of my adult life. Although I move away because I keep thinking I need to move away and go somewhere else more exciting, I always get pulled back here. So I now live in Kansas City, Missouri.
Okay.
Yeah. Dragging. Yeah. Clawing. They always bring me back. But I was born in Southern California, near LA. And
okay. Does that help explain? I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No.
Does that help explain a part of your life that I did not know about until recently? I'm going to show this picture. This used to be Debz. Da, da, da. Can you explain what's happening?
I've been a yogi and a yoga teacher almost all of my life for over 50 years, actually. And that I'm doing a pose called Ardha Chandrasana, which is it's about the moon. Some people call it a starfish, but that's what I'm doing. And I actually, that picture, because it's really fuzzy, came from a newspaper article when I turned 51. They did a full page or a full article in the Kansas City paper about women over 40, and I was 51. And that was me at 51 as a yoga teacher.
Were you working out? Because you're so muscular. Look at you.
Oh, yes. I've been an athlete, pretty much an elite athlete all of my life, other than when I was really young. When I was a young kid, I was kind of sickly and had asthma and stuff. But after about age 13, when I was introduced to my first yogi, who took me on as his student, and then I became his assistant teacher. After that, I became very athletic, bodybuilding, marathon running, all kinds of sports and all sorts of things, physical things. I'm a double Aries, so I have a lot of energy.
You're an Aries.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Thankfully, I have a Libra moon, or I would be burning everyone up with my my personality. But that's what that picture is all about. They said, women are unlimited in this day and age, and this is what you can expect at age 51. And at age 51, I was in my prime condition even. So
So the yoga then brought you into this metaphysical, esoteric world that you're very active in today as an intuitive counselor and as an energy healer.
So for some, it enhanced it. I came in this way, actually. I came in being able to perceive and manipulate energy, as a healer, even as a little child. But I just thought everybody was that way. I found out rudely when I started going to parochial school that is not true, and you have to kind of quelch it. But I've always been an experiencer since birth, I think. Earliest memory was as an infant, choking to death in my bed. This memory just came up as a spontaneous regression this year. I thought my earliest memory was about 2.5 or 3 years old, but this one, again, I had asthma, I had a lot of breathing problems, and I was choking to death, lying on my tummy. And I remember hands coming in and picking me up and cradling me to a heart and patting me. And I have always had that memory, but I always thought it was one of my parents. Well, I finally got this full, clear memory, and it was a tall gray. And it literally saved my life. And then it laid me down in a proper position where I could breathe and put its hand on my lungs and stopped the asthma attack. And I was probably 3 months old.
What's your first conscious memory of ET contact? And was that with a gray?
Yeah, that was that memory. I used to say it was when I was about 2.5 or 3, where the little grays, I called them space monkeys, even though I didn't know what space was or what monkeys were out in the tree in front of my bedroom window, wanting me to come outside in the middle of the night. And then after that, daily contact with many different beings. But I also had contact with and perceived and interacted with like a whole other family overlaid my physical family, who were in a slightly different dimension, but were completely real. And
what do you mean?
Well, the father's name was Leo Kreitz, and the mother's name was Sylvia, and they had 3 children. My parents had 4. They looked human, but not quite. They had more mantis-like features, but they dressed in human clothes. They were bipedal, but they lived. It's almost like a transparency was over my physical life. So we would be eating dinner, for instance, as a family in my Earth family's little kitchen. And just over to the side was my other family having their meal. And I was sitting at both tables in the middle, having conversations with these and these, and,
So you're having loud conversations where your 3D family can hear you?
Until
what are they thinking?
And, for a long time, they thought I was just highly creative and imaginative, but I'm sure they got wigged out by it. And after a while, my mom said, we don't want to hear about any of that stuff anymore. So it was all telepathic.
But it continued. It still continued.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
Do you interact with them today?
You know what? I haven't. That's a really good question. I wonder why. I wonder if we've outgrown each other or what. But even in my early adulthood, I still saw them and interacted with them regularly.
Do you think they were living in another dimension in the exact same place that you lived in?
Yeah. I mean, we all are. Quantum science, quantum physics teaches us that everything's occurring in the same place all at once forever. We just have to have that exploded view that we call a timeline. But really, it's just frequencies, so whatever frequency your sustained vibrational state is in any given moment, that's what you're going to perceive. Most humans, I think, at least the ones I grew up with, were in a sustained vibrational state where they perceived, this that we're seeing, around us as the reality. and everything else was closed off. And anytime they saw something that didn't fit that modality or that perception, they called it a ghost, right? Or a fairy or a dream or whatever.
Or
But
demon.
a demon, exactly. Some people call it a demon.
And how is it that you came about to be the associate producer for your film, Alien Abduction?
That could take us hours, but Cliff's Notes versions, I was on, I'm on several CE5 teams, Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind teams. I've always led some sort of Skywatch or UFO team since I was a young adult. But, you know, after Dr. Greer started calling it CE5, then everybody called it CE5. I call that the Band-Aid effect, where, you know, any adhesive tape bandage is called a Band-Aid now in our country. So contact work is called CE5. But I not only have my own group locally, but I participate in larger groups that are made up of people from all over the country, or even international groups where we meet in other countries and do research and field work. So I was with one of our big national groups and had some incredible experiences. And one of the people in that group was involved in a movie that this company was making for Dr. Greer. It didn't come about. It kind of fell apart in the middle, which is it's immaterial to the story, other than the fact that John Yost, who was the director and producer of that movie, was then free. And my friend said, hey, why don't we make our own movie? You know, and we have more freedom, and they had some capital investors. And so I was invited to a meeting of some of these people, him included, to discuss being involved, because I had done a spontaneous and very meaningful channeling right in the middle of a CE5 one night with this group. And they played it for them, and they're like, wow, we want her in the movie. So it was just a get together kind of thing. But the whole time, what everybody was talking, this Zoom meeting, the whole time I kept seeing John Yost, and it, you know, he was very eloquent, and he was talking about all the nuts and bolts of filmmaking and all this, but his soul was broadcasting, I'm suffering, I'm suffering, I'm suffering. Help me, please. And I was quite taken back. I don't look at, you know, I'm very psychic and empathic, but I don't look at people's souls unless I'm asked. But this was just constant. It was almost like blocking out everything else. So anyway, the meeting ended, and it was a nice meeting. Afterwards, my guides, the star teachers, came in and said, you have to get in touch with him right now and offer him services. You have to do it now. And I almost always do what they say because I trust them implicitly. It sounds crazy, but I always laughingly say I listen to the voices in my head and I do what they say. But this time I'm like, no, he doesn't know me from Eve, and he's going to think I'm a psycho contacting him, you know, and I don't even have his phone number. And like, well, you have his email address, so send him a note. It took me about 3 days before I said yes. And I did. I wrote him a little note. I said, I you know, you're going to think I'm crazy, but I feel like you're suffering from something, and I'm completely at your service if you need anything. And I would love to have a conversation with you about it if you're up for it. And almost immediately he called me back. I think my phone number is in my signature. He called me back and he said, how did you know?
Aww.
And that's how our work together started. It took him a long time, took a couple of years before he would even hear of doing quantum hypnosis. He didn't believe in hypnosis. In fact, he didn't believe in any of this. He had completely blocked most of what he had experienced as a child, which was a terrifying experience when he was 7. And yet he had lived a lie about it his whole life, and it was causing him all kinds of phobias. And, you know, you can only imagine when you repress something, it comes out in many weird ways. And so we started out by just making friendship and then doing little mini kind of explorative exploratory counseling sessions. And then once he got a little bit more brave, we did some mini hypnosis sessions on things like that he would be able to validate, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then right in the middle of the pandemic lockdown, he called me one day and he's like, Debz, I'm ready to do the big one. He called the scary session the big one. And I said, great, I'll make a Zoom link. Let's set a date. We'll do it. And he's like, no, we can't. By that time I was doing them all over Zoom. I had been for years before that, but during the pandemic, everything was by Zoom. And he's like, no, I'm a filmmaker and I would love to just bring you to the studio. I want to record it on film, like on real film. Like, well, we can't. There was a travel ban at the time even. And how are we going to do this? Well, powers that are higher than us, like within days, the travel ban was lifted. We found a way to get me out there. And we were literally just going to document his session on film for him. We weren't talking about making a movie. And his session lasted 6.5 hours. I never go that long with anyone, but there was so much coming through him that was impactful and was so powerful. And we were both just, several times I would say, is your body getting tired and all that? But his higher self was speaking through him by that time. He's like, no, this body's being supported. You're being supported. Keep going. So we rolled for 6.5 hours. And by the end of it, we had some of the most profound footage of any session I've ever done on film. Mm-hmm. There's only like 7 minutes of it throughout the film. And we had planned on putting more of it in subsequent films in a series. He passed away, sadly, this year from pancreatic cancer. But here's the kicker. He works with me every day. He came in right away and said, get up off of your seat, quit mourning, quit being sad. You've got work to do. I've got work to do. It's going to be supported. The mission continues, and just, be open to anything that happens that feels right. Mm-hmm. And things have, I can't talk about a lot of things, but there are things happening where I think the work's going to continue with him. But anyway.
I first watched the film when I spoke at a conference that John spoke. That's how we met.
Oh, yes.
It was last year in San Francisco.
UFO
yes. Con, I think.
Yeah,
that's how
UFO Con. Yeah.
Yes. And everybody liked him. He was just one of those guys that everybody liked. He was open and accessible to everybody and generous.
A grand soul.
And I was just so happy that somebody new like this had entered our realm. And I was blown away by the film. Absolutely blown away. I did cry during it.
Yes.
It felt like it's the movie that came the closest to explaining how experiencers feel. Because it's really hard to explain how we feel. There aren't good words to explain how you just you don't even know who you are anymore.
No.
It was so good. It was really well done. Yeah. So I'd like to just show a couple pictures and then a trailer for the movie.
Yeah. Cool.
So what do we have here?
Well, this is the main group of experiencers who were all my clients, by the way. This is a funny part of this story, is that once his session was over, we were talking and he said, he was feeling so special about it all. And I said, I'm like, you are special, but I hear the same stuff from all of my clients, just different variables. And he's like, really? I'm not that special like you are, but this is happening to lots and lots of people. And he said, do you think any of your clients would want to be involved? We should make a movie out of this. And I said, I don't know, but I can ask. So all the people you see here on the screen, these are some of the main experiencers you see in the film. They're all my clients. Really, I think the only person in the movie who isn't my client is Whitley Strieber, but he's turned into a wonderful friend and mentor. So, and it was a dream of mine to meet Whitley. So that's a shot from the session.
Yeah.
And they recreated my office in their studio.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
That's what your office looks like.
that's not my office anymore. That's a recreation of what was my office. And that used to be a conference room in their studio, believe it or not.
nice.
That's a movie set.
And there you are with John.
Yeah. He turned into like my best guy friend other than my husband.
Such a nice.
And yeah, he still is. Love you, John. So
yeah.
anyway.
Hello. Okay. Let's watch.
Here.
Yeah. Okay. All right, let's watch this.
This is not communication. It's communion. Hundreds of thousands of people have claimed contact. That will change you. It changed me.
Lost in between two worlds and two dreams.
This was something that I kept buried for years. Strange things would happen. I didn't want anything to do with it anymore.
He came at me, and I fought for my life.
Ships started to pop up in the sky.
And there's this bizarre disk of light. It is moving across the sky very fast.
The experience is often very terrifying.
If I felt fear, I would crawl under my covers, hoping that it would go away, whatever it was.
I know that we were put in that craft.
I knew I was going to go to another planet.
And the being was right next to my face.
He saw two shadow beings. That's when I felt like I was going to die.
I had a real encounter with something. Even if I had to live with the fear, is to know the truth, is to know.
And it's still playing. People can watch it. They can find it easily, right?
Everywhere. Almost all streaming platforms. It's even free on Tubi, if people can find Tubi TV. I think the only one that didn't license it was Netflix, and it's because they're in such competition with Amazon. But it's always been on Amazon, Apple TV, iTunes, Google Play, and 1,000 other streaming sources. And you can buy a physical copy off of Amazon too, if you wish. So, yeah. So it's been 2 years since its release, and it just keeps growing. And the reason why is we had an agreement when we first decided to make the movie that no one involved would be able to work on the movie unless they were in a certain vibrational state, because we realized that this was going to be a vehicle not just for a message that is very deeply moving and beautiful, as you know, but the movie itself is a vehicle to deliver a certain energetic infusion of messages from our star family. And it's all about support and empowerment and path, purpose. So
it's like an activation when you watch it.
It really is an activation. So I tell people, if you're feeling down, watch the movie, even if you're not interested in that subject, because you're going to get a turbo boost in your soul. And it does help that.
Turbo boost.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm interested in the work that you do with your clients. What are the various modalities or sessions that you offer?
Yeah. Well, the one you saw in the movie is quantum hypnotherapy, and it's a mixture of, well, I started out in clinical psychology, so I have that as my base, and then added in all the other gifts that I was born with. You know, I have psychic gifts, I have energy healing gifts, and I am a yogi. And so in my practice, my clients are given some homework to learn and practice to use to balance their chakra systems and to decalcify and activate their pineal glands and everything before we ever do the work. And then we do it together. And you'll see John and I do part of it in the film even. And it gets you into that super streaming channeling state where you're literally actively engaging with the quantum field or the mind of God or whatever you want to call it, the Akashic records. And in that state, you can access any version of yourself, of which there are infinite versions, or any point in that version's experience. So, and then we also visit at least one occurrence of leaving a life. Sometimes we have an occurrence of being born into a life or being in between the lives, but we always talk to the higher self or whatever it calls itself in that session, God, source, divine, whatever. And that usually ties everything together that happened in the session, does healing and balancing, and makes it uniquely utilizable for this life. And we ask it a lot of questions and all that. What's interesting is most of my clients don't know each other. They're from all over the world, from all walks of life. And yet when we get to that end part where we're talking to the higher self, it will answer all their questions, because I also make them fill out a very comprehensive questionnaire before our session too, where I ask questions that they want answered. And then sometimes I'll ask my own questions, but then there's always a message for the world. It comes through every single time in the same voice. And it is like this running serial message that keeps getting added on to from session to session to session between all these people. It's the same entity talking always at the end, which is amazing. And it's building up a base of knowledge and wisdom between the sessions that I'm putting into a book that hopefully I'll publish by January. That's my goal.
Exciting.
Yeah. So that's one modality. I do also smaller versions of that, especially if you've done one, then we can do a smaller version, a quicker version. I also do something I call kind of playfully express regress, where it's just like a 90-minute session where you get to just visit one scene. But it's still, you still have to do all that homework. Quantum jump is another part of that, where it's more passive. I guide the person into that experience, and it's quiet. They're not speaking the words, but I think it's very powerful when they see themselves speaking these words that they have no clue they're going to speak about, sometimes subjects they didn't even know existed, which is powerful. And then I do quantum channeling. Mostly I channel a group entity called the Star Teachers, who say that they're us on a more highly advanced vibrational level, kind of us in the future, if you will. And but sometimes whoever they need to be channeled to from will come through.
And what do they look like?
The Star Teachers, they're humanoid only in the fact, again, that they're bipedal, but they're almost like, at least when they've shown to me, they're almost like black or chrome glass, liquid light almost. They have that shape of the head that's kind of that an inverted teardrop shape, but there are no features at all. They're shiny. And they're very tall. They're about 7.5, 8 feet tall, long limbs, 3 fingers, and a small thumb from when I've seen them. And, but what's interesting is, even though they have no facial features, they're so empathic. And often it's telepathic. I say empathic interactions. But what you do see at times is you can see into them, and you see kind of what looks like my background swirling around inside of them. Instead of seeing their organs or whatever, you see galaxies, you see universes, you see energy. But that's what they look like to me.
Well, how are they different from the shadow people that people say?
I don't know. Shadow people, I think, are more shadowy. They're just shadows. They're They're more amorphous. These beings are when they do show up physically, they're very solid looking, but they're transparent enough where you can see this that's behind me inside of them.
Well, how far in the future are they?
What they're telling me now is they're here right now. It's all now.
Okay.
But here's what they say. Their main message, and I'm just going to give it to you straight.
Okay.
It's coming. We are you having advanced to a higher frequency, but you can consider us your future selves. In this particular lifetime, the one that you're living right now, is when the major part of the human race makes a quantum leap from you where you are vibrationally to the next, what you would call dimension. We call it the next layer of frequency, where duality, lower vibrational things such as fear, greed, and all of that are not a part of that, nor is karmic patterning. That's all a construct of this third dimensional earth construct that you're living in now. This incarnation, something almost nearly annihilating happens. Before you leave this body, you're going to witness this. And everyone who is listening to this, who is living at this time, will witness something that is so catastrophic that the human race has to come together and realize that they have to live and work together in acceptance and harmony. And once you hit that place, at least in critical mass of the population, not everybody will. When you hit that point, everybody shifts who's in that vibrational state. They shift. It's not like you go somewhere else. You sustain your focus on that level. Again, it's like quantum hypnosis. You put your focus on another level of your being, and so you experience as a reality. But this will be sustained. And so this one still exists, but it's kind of on pause, like a probability. And the new one will be your reality. And it happens this incarnation. And once that happens, the human race and the planet begin to quickly accelerate into not just space travel, but galactic travel, intergalactic travel, and eventually into interdimensional travel. And by that time, you have evolved so much that you don't need a physical being, but you can manifest one if you want, or any type of physical matter. Mm-hmm. But it slows you down. So most of the time you're in a liquid light body is what they call it. But that's where they live now. That's there. They also say that once you proceed up through these layers past the first few, you become like they are to us, to the ones who are still experimenting in this lower vibrational state of earth manifestation.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So a catastrophe is going to take us there, or disclosure? Is it going to be bad or something good?
It's neither bad nor good, they say, and they're going to say it again this way. Everything in quantum creation has neutral value until the observer perceives it and assigns a value to it. Mm-hmm. And that observer is often colored their perception by past experiences. So you label things, at least in this construct. What they're saying is, sadly, most human beings do not feel pushed hard enough to work with others who are maybe from a different religion or country or ideology until something so catastrophic happens or begins to happen that you all have to pull together and recognize that this person's diversity will help with what you have, and everybody's gifts start to kind of dovetail. So it could be like an asteroid coming to hit the earth. It could be an atomic war. It could be, or the threat of it, or it could be disclosure of what you're talking about, where the governments actually start to say, yeah, this is happening. They do say that full honest disclosure will probably never happen in the way that you feel like you want it to, because they've lied for so long and covered up for so long, they can't be trusted. So something has to shock. It's like a pattern interrupt for the human race. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It has to shock everybody past all of that. There will be no more finger pointing or blaming or saying that person did this and this is why we're here. It's all erased because everything is focused on what is happening now and what we're going to build for the future.
Oh, okay.
And they say we've already done it. And they say, here's the proof. We wouldn't be talking to you now had you not done it. So thank you, future ancestors.
Oh, okay. So they have experienced the catastrophe pushing them into the next frequency layer.
Mm-hmm.
What was their catastrophe?
They don't say, because it can be multi-dimensional. Remember, it's
Mhm.
not just one thing. And they also are saying, we're not going to give you all the cheat codes because you have to go through it or it would not be a valid experience. But you do go through it and you do it with flying colors and you ace the test and now you're us.
Okay. There's no timeline here because there is no time. We just wake up every morning and be the best version of ourselves we can possibly be. And that's all we can do.
That's pretty much the message. They're like, stop fighting all of the things that you are upset about. Stop fighting that and start putting your energy into what you want the world to be like and live that way. And that's how it changes.
You recently came back from a conference, a retreat.
Yes.
That you hosted. Can you tell us about it, please?
Yes.
It looks like a nice turnout.
Yeah, it was great. I've been involved with this. This was our 6th annual one. It's called the Contact Modalities Retreat up in northern Wisconsin, really up close to the Canadian border. It's a beautiful place at a resort owned by one of my besties, Melissa Kane. We try to keep the location kind of not public because we vet people who come by this time because it's gotten pretty big. But we had it started out to be a CE5 training retreat, and now we've gotten so advanced that we present many other things. We present a lot of techniques on making contact with non-local consciousness, Kundalini yoga, my Mindscapes neurographic art program.
Okay, the neurographic art.
Yeah.
Is that what they're doing right here?
That's what they're doing here. Yeah, they're doing this.
About that. What are they doing?
You're drawing from the inner connection that you have to the quantum field. And what's interesting is there's a whole process. Again, we do breath work, we do meditation, we do a little bit of sound technology, what you might call mantra or toning. And then everybody gets in this very high frequency, and it's a coherent heart frequency. And then you get to break out the toys, the pens, the papers, the colors. And what we do is start by drawing with a black marker on the paper, what you call an intuitive line. And it's like automatic drawing. You just let your hand draw for about 30 seconds, any kind of squiggles. The first thing you do, though, is set an intention for what it is you want to make contact with in this case, or maybe what you want to heal or improve or whatever. You have a set intention, and then you just let the line draw. And at any intersection point of those lines, then you start to round off the angles. And this is very important because what your neural net is doing is rewiring itself to dissolve resistance or what you would call blockages or wounds. The brain, the mind, consciousness does not like sharp angles. It likes everything to flow. And so anytime two lines meet, you see how my fingers are? Yeah. You can see there are four angled points there at that cross. Mm-hmm. So at each point, you're going to round that off with the black marker so that they're all rounded edges. And what starts happening is the picture starts to change. and then forms start to shape. Sometimes more lines want to come in or shapes. And you go into this deep, deep theta state doing this. And then if you like, you can make a colored version of it and things start to pop out. Most of them don't mean anything to anyone else. But what you get when you're finished is, I don't know if I sent you a picture of it. I might be able to show you here, but
Yeah, I'd love to see it.
What you wind up with
Oh, it's so pretty.
is a snapshot of your neural net when you are in coherence.
Snapshot of your neural net when
Yeah.
you were downloading or channeling or drawing that.
That's what my
That's so pretty.
what my synapses look like in my brain at that moment.
So what does that do to you every time you look at that?
It literally changes the way I feel. It changes the way I think. It's like an upgrade. It's like you know how you take a tablet of medicine to help you feel better if you have a headache? That does the same thing. It raises my vibrational state. But what's interesting is the rounding off and the choosing. You don't choose. You allow the colors or shades, if you choose to do black and white, to dominate, and you don't think, you feel. And it literally changes everything. It changes everything. It's an incredible modality for healing or for manifesting. But in our intention, we wanted to remove all of our resistances, fears, and blocks to making contact. And people were so excited. And then we went out to the field that night and had fantastic contact. Fantastic contact. And we have videographers and photographers who documented. But in here, Kimberly Porth, who's also one of my besties, is also a lifelong yogi, and she's a yoga teacher. She specializes in Kundalini yoga. And so but she adds that into our CE5 work to get us into coherence, just like the art. But in this frame, she and I are doing a special thing that she came up with because she's very into Native American and Indigenous studies. And we recited a very long Navajo prayer, a chant together, and drummed and did some ritual before that CE5. So with Mindscapes and then that practice, it was mind-blowing. It was crazy. It was so good. And so amazing. I mean, you just feel so amazing.
Is that fire?
I believe that is a headlamp. It might be fire. We did work with fire, but we had to have a headlamp. That's actually in the dark, but our photographer, had a light enhancing.
Oh, all right. And so if anyone's interested in attending this or in any of your sessions, how can they get a hold of you?
They can go to my website. It's debzshakti.com. And that's the first place. You always will be able to see the events and the retreats and the conferences that I'm doing, or workshops or online events that I'm doing. We're adding to that this year, this next year, with the very first Contact Modalities Expo.
Yeah, here we go.
And that's in Delavan, Wisconsin. That's in South Central Wisconsin. It's very close to Chicago, Madison, Illinois. So it's really close for a lot of people to come from major airports. But we have some very big superstars in the contact modalities and paranormal world coming. That's just a sampling. We have a lot more coming. But I'll be presenting there 2 different things. I'll be doing for the very first time, on stage quantum hypnosis session with a super secret person that's to be announced later. And this is a big deal for me, because even when we made the move, I've never had another person in 40 some years in the room with me and my client doing this work. Not even John. When we were filming, everybody, had to be set up, and all the cameramen and everything were in other parts of the studio building, working remotely. It was just he and I in the room. So this is a big deal. I had
Oh
to be
my
talked
gosh,
into
and now
that.
you're going to do one on stage.
Yeah. And I'm very excited about it. I mean, they said the time for that is all over and people need to be in the midst of it and feel the energy of it. And so I'm really excited. So one day I'm going to be doing that at that expo. And on the other day, I'm going to be holding a live gallery where I channel the star teachers and people will be able to interact with them.
And ask questions. Can I
yeah.
ask questions?
Yeah.
There's
And I'm
a lot
just
of
like,
channeling. Mhm.
and I'm just like the tiniest person on that bill. I mean, we've got some very big people coming. Jimmy Church is going to be our host. Chris Bledsoe is our keynote speaker. We've got Adam Apollo. We've got Paula Harris, Scott Walter, Haley Ramsey. I can't even, Wendy Gallant, who teaches to blind people to see without eyes and teaches people to see blindfolded. Very cool. So there's a lot that's going to happen to that. So people can just go to the website and find out. But for that particular expo, the tickets are going to go on sale, I think, in a week, November 1st.
Yeah.
They can go to contact modalities expoxpo.com and get to the website. But that's on my website too. So.
Yeah. All right. We were talking about this skull that you own.
Yes.
And just by looking at it, like I feel like I'm like, can you please explain what this skull is all about?
This I'm very big into all kinds of vibrational energy work, as well as all kinds of, it's all vibrational energy, but I love working with crystals and gemstones. Then I got into crystal skulls. I started reading a long time ago about the Mitchell Hedges crystal skull and got all into that and have worked with that group, Bill Holman's group. And then I started collecting skulls from all over the world, but most of them are smaller. Earlier this year, a friend in Mexico who is a gemstone artist who makes his living carving crystal skulls made a series of these, and we were talking about them. They're made of obsidian from scratch, carved from an obsidian block. This one, his name is Yantik. In Mayan language, it means spirit. But this one is the size of a true human head and weighs about 15 pounds. And he carved it all by hand. And if you see above that eye that is facing you, there is a strip of looks like symbols going across the head. Those are symbols given to him in an ET contact encounter that he had in a dream state. And he does not know what they mean. But when he and I became friends and he started telling me about this series of skulls that he makes that are part Mayan symbology and part ET symbology, he said, I have one that you need to see. And he hadn't made it public. And he showed it to me, this one. And immediately I recognized the symbols because I get those coming into my mind screen during meditation. And I completely I feel like it's, I know it's conscious and that we are connected. And I won't go into the story about how I got it, but he worked things out so I could have it. It's a very, very expensive thing, if you can imagine. And he tried his best to get it to me before that retreat that we had back this fall. And it got held up in customs in the US coming from Mexico for about 6 weeks. And it arrived at my house the day after I went to the retreat. So he wasn't supposed to go up there and now I know why. He weighs too much to carry, but
you can't lug him around everywhere you go.
I will find a way, but
are you going to take him to the expo coming up?
Yes, I will be taking him. Okay. I will find a way to take him, but he's got both Mayan imagery carved into him, and it's all hand carved, all freehand. Mayan imagery you see but also ET imagery. That's a kind of a ET Mayan hybrid shaman that you see there. Those Mayan symbols, there's an ET symbol. On the other side, there is a Mayan shaman holding a snake, and they're having some sort of an interaction. On the back, there's a spaceship, It's just, but this skull is in every session. It's right here next to me right now in every interview and everything. It sits with me in meditation. It has a very unique energy.
What does it do?
Often it, gives me information. It creates a portal. Sometimes I travel with it. It's a friend. It's a guide. I think it's just a very beautiful physical manifestation of one of my teachers. So
does it take you to a portal filled with knowledge and experiences of the Mayans, or does it take you further than that?
Sometimes it does, because I'm very Mayan oriented. I have had a lot of human lives as a Mayan, but also there are other dimensional lives of the Mayan people. Their name literally means people of the stars in their language. So they say that they were brought here or seeded by people from the Pleiades star system. So sometimes he will take me to that to visit, my family, but often to places that you can't even explain. It's just other universes, other dimensions that are so delicious and so healing and so exciting that I often don't want to get out of my meditation seat. If I could, I'd just sit all day with Yantek and travel, but I have to do something with all the work that we're doing. So
yes. So one thing that comes up often with my clients who are tripping through the dimensions, they have their left foot in the other worlds and their right foot here.
Yeah.
And they're kind of straddling. And they want to know how can I live like half here and half there? Well, the answer isn't half and half.
Balance.
How would you answer that?
Well, that's the true definition of a shaman, basically the walker between worlds. And so the work I do is shamanistic in many ways, and I have studied with Mayan shamans. Some of them are my teachers. So it makes perfect sense that he manifests in this way. But to have one foot in the 3D muggle world, if you want to call it that, and then one foot in a higher dimensional reality where none of the stuff that's so icky about this realm exists, if you can think about not being torn apart, but being a bridge.
Yes. Yeah, it shouldn't be a burden.
No,
or you shouldn't be victimized by it. By, a lot of people who are very psychic then take on the victimization role of, I'm too sensitive to go out.
No. Yeah.
But that's not what we're saying.
I understand them for saying that, but that's a victim vibration, and that's a lower vibrational state. So until you can break through the glass ceiling of that and keep your vibrational state one of playfulness, of trust, of love, of wonder, of curiosity, that's what you're going to get, and I'm just so over that. So
it's our natural state. It's our natural state to bridge the worlds.
Indeed, it is. Instead of creating a gap between the two, you become the bridge.
Yeah. And you teach people to be their own bridges.
I do. And so that's kind of the service. No matter what service people get from me, you were asking me about this, my modalities. And I also teach, yoga and breath work and meditation and all of that stuff, many remote viewing, all these things. But no matter what you are getting from me, you're always getting high level energy work of all kinds. I just put it all together and call it energy alchemy at this point. But because
I like the word alchemy.
I do too.
Like it more and more and more.
I do too. I think it's a proper word for what we do. Blended modalities.
Right. All right. I can't wait to see this skull in person. I hope I get to see it in person. Do you let people touch it or no?
I do. It's fine to let them touch it. But I warn them, once you've touched it or been very close to it,
It'll never be the same.
Careful what you wish for, because your energy is shifted. And if, if you like being where you are, you may not want to touch it, but or interact with it. But most
some
people are not
people
attracted
afraid?
to it unless they are. Pardon?
Are some people afraid to touch it?
I don't think so. So far, the people that I've interacted with who've seen it or who've been in its presence are just enthralled. And
Yeah.
like I said, I have other crystal skulls. Most of them are palm size, you know,
Yeah.
the palm of my hand. And they're all very powerful and have unique qualities. But this one is like, I think it probably flies around my house most of the time when I'm asleep, you know, that
Is it
kind of thing.
cold or is it warm?
It's warm. It's always warm.
It's warm.
Yep. It's super warm right now. And
Is that normal for obsidian?
No.
I don't think so.
No.
Because I'm a jewelry designer and I work with obsidian, and I don't recall it being warm when I pick it up.
It's always been warm. It came out of the box warm.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So I swear it's breathing, but breathing energy.
Yes, I think it is.
Just winked at me. So anyway.
It did. It just winked at you.
It's kind of fun.
It. Can you pick it up and show it to us?
Yeah. Like I said, it's pretty heavy. Oh, I'll show you. It's the size of my head. See?
Isn't that
So
exquisite?
see, now you can see that shaman interacting with the snake on the other side. And then
what?
There's a planet. There's a spaceship.
Wow. Was that painted on?
No, it's carved. It is carved.
All that white design is carved?
Is engraved. Yeah. He did it with a diamond bit engraver. And then here's the thing.
Wow.
It's all carved from the inside as well.
That's
I know.
amazing.
It's crazy. He's awesome. So.
Well, does he sell them? Should we promote him? Do you want to?
Yeah. Yeah. His name is, he has 4 names. His name is Mario Cesar Hernandez Suarez. And you know what? Thank you for reminding me, because I need to link him on my website. I will do that as soon as I get out of here, so that by the time this comes, you're going to see a link to Mario's work. He is he's a shy, quiet, sweet Mexican gentleman, and he lives for this work. And his work is phenomenal. He doesn't just do these. He does crystal skulls that have the articulating jaw. He does them in all types of gemstones, you know, fluorite, quartz crystal.
Oh, does he have a website or no?
No, he does not. He's more of an artist and not a technical person, a technological person, but he does interact through Facebook and Facebook Messenger and email. So
okay.
yeah.
Right.
And he uses a translator. So he uses a translation program. So he's very good at navigating, talking with people not from Mexico. So he's cool.
Well, it went by quickly, unfortunately. Before we say goodbye, just once again, tell everyone how they can reach you and what's coming up for you, what you have going on, projects, everything.
Thank you. Well, everybody can reach me by going to debzshakti.com, and I think you can see my name there, but it's debzshakti.com. Every social media platform is by that name, so you can always just search that name and come up with that. The only one is Facebook. Facebook doesn't allow me to use that name, and they deleted my Debz Shakti account in March. So I have to go by DL Buller. But if you go to my website and hit the Facebook link in my contact section, you'll go to that if you do Facebook.
So even though they deleted you, you went back?
Yes.
Okay.
I went back incognito with a different phone number. So anyway, but what's coming up next, right now I have most things are kind of on hold because my family is going through the impending release of one of our parents. And so we're very focused on that and spending time together. I'm still working though all the time. So you can make appointments through my website. It's really fun and it's a good thing. And then I'm working on finishing my book, which should be out by January. And then the next big thing is that May expo But in between there, I will be doing some online workshops and offerings, and some of them are free and some of them are, probably donation based. So just check back with the website every so often and you'll see that. And I keep updating it.
All right. Thank you, Debz. And
You're
thank
so
you,
welcome.
everyone who watched and listened. Very grateful.
Thank you, Sev. It's been a delight as always. I love you. And I love everybody.
I know.